friends, and welcome to the latest issue of the Wiser newsletter. This week we're going to be looking at three things. The first is Microsoft and their $2 trillion valuation and the newly announced and released version of Windows 11. And for CryptoCorner, we're going to be looking at the world's #1 online cryptocurrency exchange, which is Binance, and the difficulty that they've got into recently. And finally, we're going to be looking at the search for ad-free browsing. If you like the video, please remember to subscribe, hit the heart button if you listen to this on the audio blog, or the like button if you listen to this on YouTube. So we start this issue of Wiser, we're looking at Microsoft, who hit a new milestone this week when they became only the second American company ever to be valued at $2 trillion. The first was Apple. Now, formed in the mid-1970s, it took Microsoft 45 years to reach $1 trillion market capitalization. That was in 2019. And it's taken them just 2 years to double it. Now, even more remarkable is that Microsoft was only valued at $300 billion just 7 years ago. Satya Nadella has successfully taken up the reins from the iconic founding leaderships of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer at Microsoft. Both Cook and Nadella have steered their tech giants to become the two most valuable companies in the world. And for Microsoft, he has remodeled the company to reflect a changing tech agenda centered on the cloud, mobile, and gaming. This is because app developers just don't build apps for the desktop anymore. Now, Microsoft has largely avoided much of the antitrust scrutiny behind big tech, which has been primarily aimed at Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple. However, things could change with the release of Windows 11, because Microsoft have bundled Teams right into the Windows 11 taskbar, making access to the app easier than ever. The issue is that the new Windows integration clearly puts more pressure on Salesforce-owned Slack, the most visible competitor to Teams. Now, this is reminiscent of when Microsoft bundled in Internet Explorer into Windows in a direct attempt to kill off the Netscape browser. It was this anti-competitive move by Microsoft that led to their infamous antitrust case in the late 1990s. Now, despite the monopolistic move of bundling in Teams to the world's most widely installed desktop operating system, Microsoft is positioning itself to be the good guy when it comes to app development and platform creation. In a clear move to create an acre of space between themselves and tech rivals Apple and Google, Microsoft made two competition-friendly policy changes for Windows 11. First, there is no App Store fee. Non-game makers in the Windows 11 App Store keep 100% of their revenue, which is in contrast to Apple and Google, which have up to 30% take rates. Second, other app stores are welcome. Other companies like Amazon or Google could build their entire app stores within the Windows App Store, again in contrast to Apple, which doesn't allow this. Which leads us on to the other big story from the Windows 11 launch, which is Android on Windows. And this was a big surprise, because Windows 11 is going to allow Android apps to run natively on it. Microsoft says it's using Amazon's App Store to bring Android apps to Windows 11, and they've demonstrated this with apps like TikTok running on Windows. Now, as a word of caution, this is a path that Microsoft have walked down before, because Microsoft has been toying with the idea of running Android apps on Windows natively for years. Now, Android app integration directly into Windows is a significant shift. Microsoft has been embracing Android as the mobile version of Windows for years, and now these same mobile apps will run directly in Windows 11. Now, for this week's Crypto Corner, we're looking at the story around Binance, and particularly the headings of Binance is banned. The Binance is banned story made headlines about a week ago, hot on the heels of a spate of China bans crypto stories. Now, like a lot of headlines, they're misleading. When you take China, China's position on crypto hasn't really changed since 2017. Now, if you're not familiar with Binance, they are the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange and were formed in 2017 in China by an ex-Bloomberg trader who is known in the market as CZ. Now, this story about Binance's ban started when the UK's Financial Conduct Authority issued a notice that said Binance Markets Limited, which is a part of Binance Group, in quotes, is not permitted to undertake any regulated activity in the UK. This immediately got reported as Binance is banned, and it follows similar notices by financial regulators in Japan, Malaysia, and Canada. Now, the issue is that it appears that Binance has failed to go through even the most basic registration processes as it expands its operations around the world. However, This has not stopped crypto traders in these countries, including the UK, continuing to use Binance. Now, how come? It's because the regulators' notices are only applicable to the subsidiary trading companies in each jurisdiction, but not to the mothership, a subtle but important distinction left off of the headlines. In fact, when questioned by Decrypt, a spokesman for the FCA clarified that, far from being banned, in quotes, UK consumers can continue to interact with Binance Group. Now, whether this story is a sign of things to come regarding tighter crypto regulations or simply a reflection on one company's fairly slipshod and amateurish approach to operational risk and compliance is too early to say. But when it comes to a nation's attitudes towards crypto, not every country is looking at ways to slow or curtail its uptake. Take El Salvador, which has become the first country in the world to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. Now, since the last issue of Wiser was published, El Salvador has unveiled details of how it will make history. Not to be confused with a CBDC, Bitcoin will be accepted in El Salvador as a legitimate currency throughout the country. Now, they're doing this using a digital wallet called Chivo, and El Salvador will airdrop $30 of Bitcoin to every citizen that opens a new account on the mobile wallet. Closer to home, Germany has announced new laws which come into force this week that enable fund managers to include Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as a legitimate asset in what are called special funds. These investment vehicles will permit up to 20% of a fund to be held in crypto assets. Now, for part 3, we're looking at the search for ad-free browsing. In the very first issue of the Wiser newsletter, going back to the end of January, I wrote about my discussions with the founders of Neeva, the ad-free subscription search engine. Back then it was in beta mode, but just this last week it has now gone live. And their proposition is really simple, right? For the price of a cup of coffee, you can get search results that are not influenced by the ad auction model, where the top search results are not always the best for you when you use Google. However, it's no small undertaking to enter a market so heavily dominated by one player. Google has over 90% of the global search market and generated $147 billion in revenue from online ads last year, more than any other company in the world. And the flywheel effect is helping Google maintain this monopoly. For example, it is estimated that Google have indexed over 600 billion web pages. Now you compare and contrast that with the number 2 search engine, which is Bing. They've indexed only 100 billion. This makes Google more attractive to more advertisers and more searchers, and so it goes on. Now, also in the privacy game is a browser called Brave. Now, this internet browser promises privacy and ad-free browsing, as opposed to Neeva, which is ad-free searching. Google this week have announced that they are delaying the end of cookies on their Chrome browser. Now, you may recall in the March issue of Wiser that I reported on Google's decision to move away from cookies as the means of tracking you when you are online and as you move across the internet. Now, the issue for Google is that their ad revenue model entirely depends on their ability to target suspects with a laser focus. Remember, I just told you they earned $147 billion last year from this. Now, their alternative solution was called a federated learning of cohorts, aka a flock. But this has not gone down so well with advertisers who just do not believe that they'll be able to get the same level of targeting accuracy if they stick with their flock. This is a story that's got a long way to run. That's all for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the 2 weeks of tech in a 10-minute read or a 10-minute video or a 10-minute listen. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please hit the little heart button. Please leave me a comment. Everything is welcome. If you know anybody that hasn't seen the newsletter or hasn't watched the videos, please pass these on because we're building our following up. And good news on the newsletter, I'll just give you an update. We launched at the end of January. We passed 700 subscribers this week, and we're well on our way to a milestone of our first 1,000. And I'd like to thank everybody who has subscribed to the newsletter for doing that. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.